Okay. All right. We are live with the new series, Curveball Conversations. Welcome to the first episode. Aren't you lucky, Alex, to be the big here on Curveball Conversations? If you don't know me, I'm Kristin Smedley, and I am a best-selling author, mom behind the true story that inspired the upcoming film Curveball, which is a Rocky-style underdog story about resilience, access, and what happens when someone refuses to be counted out, or in my case, when they refuse to have their kids that access the world differently be counted out. So I developed this series to really give folks the inside scoop, the behind the scenes, and honestly, the why I am so passionate. And the people that have gotten involved with Curveball are so passionate to make a story like this happen. Because honestly, the way I see it is when we change the story, we change what's possible. And that is what we're going to be diving into on all different kinds of elements of the film Curveball and the different things about it. And wait do you see? I mean, we're going to go from today talking about what I think is one of the most coolest and, dare I say, easiest, lowest hanging fruits once we all adopt it in terms of access through different things like trying to get public education on board with students that access education differently, how to do vision research and bring science about. I mean, the film Curveball talks about a lot of different themes, but ultimately, it's seeing blindness differently. That is the ultimate goal. And I am so excited to start this whole thing off with Alex because this is just a cool, it's just a cool element that I'm finding more and more people just don't know much about. And that is this little thing called audio description. Now, before we get into the whole conversation, because I can really get like so into this, we were already like talking before I was like, oh my gosh, we should probably hit go live. So let me just tell you a little bit about who Alex Howard is. He's an entertainment professional, passionate advocate for accessibility in film and television. He works in film development, a strong and super fun, knowledgeable voice for audio description, a tool that allows people with vision loss to fully experience movies and TV. And Alex also brings lived experience as someone with low vision and recently returned from my dream place, the Sundance Film Festival, where he had a front row seat to some of the newest storytelling in the industry. Okay, so Alex, let's dive right into this. And I am acting as my own like director producer here on this super fun platform of Restream. Okay, let's dive right in and let's acknowledge and give your expertise here on the fact that probably most people watching this live stream or watching the recording later have never even heard of the words audio description. So let's just start with an overall explanation of what that is.
So to add to your intro, also, I'm a accessibility consultant as well. So if anyone needs blind consulting on their website or anything, I'm your guy. Scripts, audio description, all that stuff. But yeah, what is audio description? Audio description is a secondary audio track that goes in between lines of dialogue that blind people use to watch movies. So you can turn it on and off on your streaming services. It's like if you turn it on to Spanish, audio description is a different audio track, and it helps us understand what's going on when there's no talking. So it describes if Kristen's picking up a bottle of water or something like that. It describes that to the blind audience.
Awesome. And you know what? I think if I can get this going, we actually have like a really short 10 seconds of a demo of what Alex just talked about. This was so cool. When I did this little short doc a couple years ago, I was like a co-creator and executive producer on this. I think it was like 18 minutes long, right? Just to show, and it was about hiring people with blindness, but the audio description in it was so good that when I debuted it here in my town, I forgot to tell the audience of sighted people, oh, by the way, I only have the one that has the audio description track. And they didn't even realize it was so seamless. So let's play a real short clip of our mutual friend, Michelle, doing this audio description. Okay.
A light rail trolley moves alongside a city street. Our view soars over downtown Denver skyscrapers. In a park, people walk and ride bikes. The American flag waves in front of the Colorado State Capitol building. A guide dog lies at the foot of its owner, who sits on a park bench. A man holds his navigation cane as he enters a car. At dusk, golden lights brighten the sky. Now portraits of people with varying abilities.
There's no reason for the unemployment rate.
Okay, so that's just a little glimpse of audio description. So now that we've showed that, a little clip of that, Alex, let's talk about for a second, to really get people to have an understanding of this. What is it like? And you, as a low vision person accessing the world, what is it like when audio description is not in place, and someone like you or my sons that are almost completely blind are sitting home watching Netflix with friends or in a movie theater? What's the experience like when that track isn't there?
So you kind of question yourself. I mean, since I am low vision, I can see a good amount, but like, I think what's hard for me is when it cuts and it's a processing thing of what am I seeing now that it's a different angle, especially with action movies or horror movies, especially when it's darker. And so a lot of it is questioning like, what are they showing when it's a cutaway of someone picking something up or something like that. You feel like you're missing something, and you have to ask someone, and then that's a burden, and it's almost like imposter syndrome, especially if you're in a theater, because you can't really lean over and ask your friend every 2 seconds what something is. And so it really kind of makes you feel like you're not a part of the experience of watching a movie.
Yeah, you know what? When and I want to get into this a little bit about just how audio description works, because I'll tell you what, years ago, okay, so my Michael is now 26 and Mitch is 22, both of them born almost completely blind. So they haven't had a whole lot of visual access. And when they did have a little bit more when they were younger, Michael loved going to the movies. I mean, I grew up, that was like a special treat in my family. We didn't have a lot, so we all went together, and my mom made the homemade, like brought from home popcorn that we smuggled in, but that was okay. We were at the movies and got to see really great stories. And I loved going to the movies, and so did Michael. And then Mitchell comes along and he was like, I can't access any of this. He was so frustrated. And Michael didn't mind somebody telling him what was going on. But when they came out with the initial audio description, Michael was so grateful and thrilled. And Mitchell, I remember one time he was young and he took the headset off and he said, I can't stand this, because they were talking, that audio track that we just did the little example of, they were kind of talking over the actors talking, and there was so much going on, and it just drove Mitchell out of his mind. He didn't want to deal with it, so he didn't want to go to the movies for a while. It was much later when they improved it that now, oh my gosh, the amount of audio description he has. So let's talk for all the technical folks that are listening, and especially people in the industry that are creating films and shows for our streaming platforms. What I know you mentioned a little bit about the different tracks. Let's talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of it.
So I mean, it's not just a sense of just having audio description. You want to have good quality audio description, like you said. If it talks over the dialogue, it's frustrating. If they say something like, a pretty woman walks in, well, pretty is subjective. So like, what does she actually look like? So like, giving like the, what are you seeing? If someone answers a phone, we can hear them answering the phone because we hear the phone ringing and then we hear them say hello. Obviously they're answering the phone. So like, you really have to think like, what are we actually seeing, and give the, objective description of what's happening.
It was so interesting. I'm trying to think of the name of the show. Suits. Did you watch that series?
No, but my brother did.
Oh my gosh, we were obsessed with that show. And one time, and Mitchell loved it too, because it has the audio description, I guess they thought about on the front end. We'll talk about that in a second. But he was watching it one time, and I happened to just take a little clip from behind him, showing him listening and what audio description was. Alex, I put that on Twitter. It was like 10 seconds, and I said, this is how my blind sons are able to access one of the greatest shows. We were diehard Suits fans in this house, right? It's my biggest retweeted, or now X, whatever, reshared, liked, loved, and commented post ever. And people, what I loved about it, and this was probably 4 years ago, they were so curious as to what audio description is. And oh, I didn't realize that people that don't have vision are watching TV also. Like, it was amazing to me how much people just don't know. Now, to that point of folks that are listening and they want to consider adding audio description, let's talk about whether you do that at the end or the beginning of when you're creating something. What's the best practice?
I mean, it's always good to have that in mind at the beginning. So when you're shooting something, you can leave room for a description. I mean, you obviously want pauses too. There are natural pauses in movies usually. But if it's dialogue, if it's super wall-to-wall, oh my gosh, sorry. If it's super wall-to-wall dialogue, there's no room for description. So you want to have that idea in your mind from the start. But, I mean, when you do it at the end, you want to make sure you hire a professional, unless you yourself have gone through their certain courses. Through Colleen Connor does audio description training retreats. I know Audio Description Project does their own class. There are classes you can take to learn how to write AD. But if you don't know how to write it and you don't want to take a class, it's best to hire a company. There's Michelle Spitz, who you can go through. There's All Senses Go with Matt Lauterbach. There's the Audio Description Collective. Those are some cheaper options. But there are also, if you're a professional studio and you're doing an Oscar campaign, you know, if you're paying for an Oscar campaign, you should pay for an AD track. There are professional companies like DVW and IDC and Deluxe who do a great job with AD as well.
Awesome. Okay, now let's get into this thing. This was the whole reason that I reached out to you and said, oh my gosh, we have got to educate people on not just audio description, but access and why these things are so important. It was the headline that I saw on, I think it was Facebook the other day, that the post started with the words "great news." And it was a whole long thing about legally, there was like some advocacy done, and legally streaming channels have to have a certain percentage of their content with audio description. And there was a giant image that was fabulous for people with low vision to access. So the image about this article was so inclusive. I loved it. I was like, oh, what's the great news? You're not allowed to put content on without audio description? Nope. The image that was so inclusive said, now 10% of live streaming platforms, 10% have to have audio description in their content. 10% of their content.
Of live streaming?
I'm sorry, what do you call the Netflix and the all of those?
Yeah, streaming platforms, yeah.
Streaming platforms have to have at least 10%. And I was like, how is that great news? And it did say in the post, it's a start. I thought we were further than that, but I was like, can you imagine? I pay this subscription. And if I said to my sighted friends who I happened to be out with for right after I read that, I mean, could you imagine if you paid the same subscription as me and they turned off 90% of your content? You just had to deal with it. Like, how are these things still coming out without audio description?
I mean, 10%, while that sounds like a low number, there are streaming services that do 0%. So I think if that is a law now that's 10%, like AMC Plus, MGM Plus, they don't have any audio description. Shudder doesn't have any audio description, which is crazy because Shudder, I mean, I'm a big horror fan. So Shudder is a horror streaming service, and they put movies in theaters with audio description and then on their streaming service without. And so the 10%, that'd be great. If they started doing audio description, I mean, I'm boycotting them right now, but if they started doing even 10% with AD, I would subscribe to them. And I think that means that these streaming services need to have that ability to have a secondary track and to have AD. So I think some of them might not have the technology right now, but if they start being able to have that technology, maybe that means they'll put more than 10%. And, you know, if Shudder is already describing their theatrical movies, why not put it on their streaming service? Also, like, Tubi is free. I know they do their originals. Mubi had The Substance last year, and they had Lurker, which I saw at Sundance, and that didn't have AD. I saw it last year at Sundance, and then Mubi purchased it, and then they didn't put AD on it. And so, you know, if these streaming services start doing that 10%, it might encourage them to do more.
That's amazing to me. You know what's wild about that too, Alex? I just before we went live, my son Michael, who just traveled, I mean, he went to Tokyo, Singapore. He was flying literally all over the world, and he was on United. And he said to me, "Mom, he was on a 15-hour flight, and that's that they have the video,
Yeah.
TV, whatever in the seat. It had all the things had audio description. He was
Really? Oh
able to
wow.
access. Yes.
I've been looking on planes and I never found where the was he able to scroll through the titles and I read him what the titles were also?
He completely accessed it
Wow.
all by himself.
I need
And
to talk to him to find out how he did that because I don't know how to turn that on and off. That's cool.
yeah, I'll have to have him reach out to you and actually we'll have a big conversation because as we get Curveball into the world, this is the point now. As we're just about to go into production, we need to talk about looking at the script, how we're adding the AD, and then all of these things, especially as we're talking to streaming channels, right? That are interested to host Curveball. I had no idea that those couple of channels don't have they don't have the tech for it? Is that what it is? They
I
just
don't
haven't
know. I don't
installed
know if
it?
they're on the tech or they just ignore it. I'm not sure. I mean, the other big thing is, I mean, this week is the Oscars. There are 2 Best Picture nominees without audio description. So like, I don't know. Neon, I'm calling out Neon on this. I kind of don't care at this point. Neon, they had 4. They bought up all the international features from Cannes, not all of them, but all the big ones, and they didn't audio describe any of them. So like, Sentimental Value and Secret Agent, which are both up for Best Picture, don't have audio description, and it's like, what are we doing? Like, there are big movie fans like me and John Stark and Lee Pugsley, my podcast co-host. We were only able to watch 8 of the 10 Best Picture nominees.
Wow. I guess because we live in the world of accessibility and advocacy and all the things, I feel like my entire LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, especially LinkedIn now. I thought we were so much more advanced, but I guess I'm following all people in the industry and seeing all the work they're doing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we still have so much work to do. You know what I'm thinking now? I think I might just have to bring on the folks from United. I was to continue that story, to circle back. Michael told me a little while ago that he actually called the folks at United and said, this was so incredible for me that I had to call somebody here and tell you, thank you for what you did. And United didn't just say thank you. They were like, wait a second. We need to talk to you further to say, what else can we improve? Like, those are the kinds of
That's
companies
really
we
cool.
should be talking to, right? And have deals with when they say, what else can we improve? Wild.
Yeah.
Okay, so now thinking about the industry and where things are going, and there are companies getting it right. I have to know, okay, I'm sure other people want to know, but me, like, just personally, because I so want to go to Sundance, tell us about what it's like to go to Sundance. And also, I want people to keep in mind that you are living with a visual impairment and you're navigating that incredible scene. Tell me about Sundance.
So, I mean, Sundance was awesome. It's really funny because I think last year too, but this year especially, I mean, you never know who you're going to meet at Sundance. So like, I went to dinner just by myself on Park Avenue one night, and I came out of the restaurant and someone was like, nice cane. And I looked up and he had a cane. And I was like, no way. Like, when we were talking, and he was a producer on a movie called Joy Bubbles, which was a movie about a blind guy who, it was one of my favorite films at Sundance, actually. It's a blind guy who, it was back in the day when the phones would go based on the tone. And so he used to be able to whistle the tones of the phone and get free long distance calls. And he was blind. And it was actually the first documentary. It was the first film ever at Sundance that had open audio description screenings, which meant there's open audio description like in the theater. So that was a huge step forward for AD. But beyond that, like, Sundance, you never know who you're going to meet. I mean, I met him. I sat down at a restaurant outside a theater and had dinner with an associate editor. He just sat down next to me. We ended up having dinner together. I met like Anthony Mackie and James Wan and Lee Winnell, and just being there and being able to watch movies with AD and talking to volunteers and making connections, and it was a great time this year.
Now at Sundance, I've been to some smaller film festivals, and the one in New York City, like you kind of had to go 40 minutes up to some other section, and you were kind of traveling all around. Is Sundance like that, or is it all in one, like a giant convention?
You have to take like a bus to get places, but it's not 40 minutes. It's like, maybe a 10-minute bus ride, 15-minute bus ride sometimes. I know Toronto, you can walk to all the theaters. But yeah, Sundance, you do have to take the bus. They're moving to Boulder next year, though, so they might. I'm not sure how it's going to be in Boulder, if the theaters are all going to be walkable or not.
Wow. What are there like? I know you can't talk too much about Sundance, but are you able to tell us if do they have conversations, panels, or presentations on accessibility in film? Do they even address that, or is it just so seamless?
They have before. I'm not sure if they did this year. I was on a panel about accessibility in 2021, but that was the virtual year. So I was on a virtual. It was actually right after Rebecca Hall's movie screened, and then I was the next panel. And I was like, oh my God. So they have before, yes.
Interesting. I am so curious and excited to go next year. It's actually on my calendar once we have Curveball in edits and getting ready to launch it. I just want to experience, now that I'm so into this whole the behind the scenes of bringing a film into the world. I mean, I loved going to the movies. Actually, speaking of that, as we're wrapping up here, because I want to keep us to time, do you have a film that you either was like, you will remember it ever since you first saw it and it's decades and decades later, or that had a big impact on your life, or one of those that you just can watch over and over and over again?
I mean, Terminator 2 is my favorite film of all time.
Seriously?
Definitely that one.
Okay, I so didn't expect that. That's amazing.
The Dark Knight also definitely had. That was when I saw that in high school. I was like, this, like, you can combine superhero movies with like actually highbrow, films. Like this is that kind of opened my eyes to like, okay, I want to work in movies. When I saw The Dark Knight, so anytime that's re-released, I need to go see it. And both of those have audio description. Actually, funny enough, all of James Cameron's movies have audio description on digital now and physical media. So that's really cool.
Really?
Yeah. So like True Lies, The Abyss, Aliens, all of those have audio description.
Gosh, now that we're talking, there's so many people that have read the Curveball script and said this is like the next Aaron Brockovich meets Rocky, right? Because it is my story of advocating for the boys, but then Michael's baseball story. And I just saw the other night that on, I don't know if it was Netflix, one of the streaming platforms, Aaron Brockovich is on. And now I'm curious to see if they have audio description. But
I think it does, because I don't watch anything without audio description. And I just saw that for the first time like last year. So yeah, I think it was on Netflix with audio description.
I remember when I saw that when it first came out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know that I could have that much guts and tenacity and sass, right? That Aaron Brockovich had. And then when the first person, one of the very first people that I shared the script with, came back and said, oh my God, Kristin, this is like the next Aaron Brockovich. I was like, oh, I don't think I'm as badass as she is, but thank you for that. But I have to say, I grew up in a million years ago in the era of the original Star Wars movies. I don't understand that whole thing. With my kids are obsessed.
50 years ago next year for the first one.
Yes, thank you for that, Alex. I am 100 million years old. But yes, I grew up with them in the movie theater, and make myself even just as old, the Indiana Jones.
Oh, nice.
When they first came out, I think that I was just like, I mean, I was raised by a great storyteller, my dad, who is always defending the underdog. Like if there's an underdog, he is right there protecting. So it's probably why we were drawn to those stories, right? And I love those stories. But I have to tell you, now in my 50,000th year on this planet, somebody recently asked me, what's your favorite movie? And I said, it's a tie between Steel Magnolias and the original Top Gun. And they were like, could could they be any more different? I'm like, I know. I like the adventure and it's the stories, right? And the characters. I think that's what I love about Still Magnolias. It's the characters that are in there and that you can see yourself in. So I am such a movie fan and storytelling fan. Okay, this has been so, pardon the pun, eye-opening. Absolutely tremendous. Thanks for agreeing to do this, Alex. Tell folks not just where they can find you, but go back to reiterate the stuff that you can help people with in terms of consulting and the things that we've been talking about today.
So yeah, I'm an accessibility consultant. So if you need help with your website, making sure they're compatible with screen readers, I can help you with that. If you're writing a script and you have a blind character and you want to make sure you have proper blind representation, I can read your script and help you with that. And then also if you just want help getting audio description, making sure your film is accessible to everyone, you can feel free to reach out. My email is alexhoward215@gmail.com. I also have a podcast called The Dark Room where my co-host and I are both legally blind and we talk about movies and audio description and, you know, the industry from the blind perspective. So you can check that out. It's called The Dark Room. It's everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you want to follow us on Instagram, it's Darkroom Filmcast.
Awesome. Love it. And actually, that's a great segue. The Curveball now has an Instagram where all the clips and replay of this conversation and the additional Curveball conversations that we do will be there on Instagram and here on LinkedIn and YouTube, so that everybody can really get to know all of these different elements, especially, I mean, if you take nothing else away from all the things I talk about, for those that are in the industry, make these stories accessible with audio description, and you will have a whole, oh my gosh, bazillions of people that will be able to access them, buy the tickets, like do all the things and invest in the great work that you're all doing. Okay.
I also want to say,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I also want to say one last thing. Movies in movie theaters I love the movie theater. The movie theater is my happy place. So if you have your AD in the theater, it really gives blind audiences, like, I feel so included and so a part of the community when you're watching a movie with 400 strangers in a theater and you're laughing at the same things and gasping at the same things and, you know, you're feeling the same thing as everyone else. I mean, being blind is so isolating, and having that communal feeling is like nothing else. So see movies in movie theaters and make sure your films are accessible, definitely.
That is the absolute greatest way to end this conversation. Thank you so much, Alex, for hopping in, and make sure you all follow Alex and his podcast over on Instagram and listen wherever you get podcasts, and also give Curveball a follow, and then you'll see when all these conversations are coming out. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks.